Alright guys, hope you're all well and keeping safe. Today I've got another State of the Game recap video. This time the devs talked about the new Agnostic Mod slots, and we got to learn how the devs are going to tackle rainbow loot and the system being tested on the PTS soon, along with some information about TU11 and some other things. If you want to support me, then the best way to do that is to just watch the whole video. You can drop a like down below, that helps, and subscribe for Division content. With that said, let's begin. Alright, so as usual guys, I got my list here of everything we got from today's State of the Game in this recap, easy to digest video. So today we had Hamish, Nikki and Johan. Started off with the priority alerts. So we had the PS4 blue screens patch that went out yesterday. So they should pretty much all be fixed, although this is just meant to reduce the frequency of them. If you are experiencing them as well still, they just said to send crash reports so that they can try and fix them as soon as possible. On screen are the maintenance notes from yesterday. So as you can see, they fixed an issue that caused targets marked by hostile negotiations, which is Negotiator's Dilemma, to receive very high multiplied damage when shooting critical hits at ballistic shields. They also fixed an issue that caused some players to get stuck in an infinite loading screen during Liberty Island on story mode if they interacted with the final door while their character fell unconscious. Hamish then went on to confirm that with TU11 they've got no date as of yet, although we're going to get that very soon. They then included this kind of overview of what to expect in kind of like the upcoming weeks. We've got the details about the new game mode, Skyscraper. We've got Season 3, new gear, appearance mods. Today, obviously, looking at Rainbow Loot and Agnostic Mods as well. They did confirm, in terms of gear for Skyscraper mode, there is going to be some kind of like exclusive gear to that mode. One of those is going to be a third exotic, which is going to be a crafting quest, which is going to be tied to that. So that's some good news, actually. Like I've said before in previous videos, there does need to be some kind of incentive to play Skyscraper aside from just it being a new mode, you know, gear and that sort of thing. So it looks like that's something they will be doing. Johan then wanted to talk about bug fixes. They said they're still working on fixing as many things as possible to put into TU11, but he did name a few. So the first one being that the Striker gear set, you've not been able to dye that gear set, but that's going to be fixed, so you'll be able to do that with TU11. The crafting costs for SMGs, the polycarbonate being too high compared to everything else, that again is being fixed. And also players that are unable to fast travel from New York to the Dark Zone, that's also being fixed. Again, they just said this is a preview of fixes. Notes will be available around the PTS and when that goes live, which again will be very, very soon. They then talked about Bruce, who wasn't there, but they kind of had some snippets of information from him. Bruce confirmed that there's going to be some buffs coming with various items within TU11, changes coming to Lady Death and the Firewall Break armor, and I presume that's mainly going to be for PvP. They then confirmed that Skyscraper news is coming next week, as we've seen on their previous kind of short roadmap. Question was then asked of Nikki in terms of things following TU 10.1 with loot, you know, what's happened. And Nikki basically said that the community had been complaining about loot degrading since TU 10.1, and Nikki just wanted to reiterate that nothing has actually changed their end since the update, and everything is the same as it was before. There are a couple of things that are going on now that kind of throw a wrench in the works in terms of better loot. Some is presentation, some are bugs, and some is just system improvements being worked on, like the rainbow loot, which they're working on as of right now. Presentation wise, if you're trying to judge a minimum amount of gear, there is some rounding done on small increments. So if you're trying to judge an item power on the UI, sometimes it won't look right, but it doesn't actually affect the power. And my recommendation, and I've been guilty of this as myself, is just looking at the bar itself, but not looking at the actual value. My recommendation is look at the actual value, the percentage value, because that is the determining factor, not the little bar, which appears to, for a lot of times, be out of sync of the actual power of the item, and that's what they're talking about in terms of presentation in UI. They've had instances where you're playing heroic control points, which sometimes set to normal upon completion. That's an issue, and they're working their way through trying to fix that on specific control points. There are some particular bounties as well where it would say that you should get, you know, loot, but you don't get it, and so they're just working their way through these things that, you know, are frustrating and shouldn't be there. They want to talk about skill tier items, you know, having a fixed value, and there being some issues, not with that, but how it looks in terms of the gear. So what they said is that under the hood, on a skill tier item, it still rolls like weapon damage and armor will do, but it's overwritten to a fixed value. Obviously, skill tier is just a fixed value compared to weapon damage and armor. This means that if you roll a skill tier, it could roll high, meaning that 2 minor attributes will be lower because it's giving you an average of all 3. And that's why you may see maybe kind of 2 low stats on an item that's rolled skill tier as the kind of the major attribute, because that major attribute's rolled really high. You just can't tell because it's just a fixed value. They will be excluding skill tiers from rolling in the future in T11, so the average will now just be the 2 minor stats, and that should fix that issue, and that's a very good fix and makes sense. They then went on to say that contrary to what people believe, Rainbow Loot has not got better and it's not got worse with each update, because they've had no access to that system until now. It's just all been RNG, and obviously if you're trying to look for an all red item, the chances are going to be low, and so it's just on a chance basis that the majority of the time you are going to see Rainbow Loot, because based on chance that's what's going to happen. But nothing's really changed. But now they have the ability to actually go in there and make changes. What they wanted to do was find a balance between people wanting hybrid builds and people who want, say, full red or full blue or full yellow builds. And at this point, guys, I'm going to include the presentation that they give just because it goes in detail, and it's just easier if you watch the presentation, and we'll come back after that.
Here you have the part of the item that we're talking about, right? So the core attribute is a red core weapon damage. I'm going to give this entire example based on a red core, but of course it's also true for yellows and blues. So how it works now, the core attribute is red, and then the first attribute and the second attribute below that are actually completely random. There's no weighing in there. So that means that you can get a rainbow drop that has all 3 colors. It can have 2 colors. It can have 1 color, and everything is red. But there's no weighing in there, and that's what we're going to change. So if you show the next slide, these are basically the options, right? For the first random attribute, there's 4 attributes per color, so there's 12. So you have, if you go to the next one, you have basically an 8.3% chance of any of these attributes happening, and that means a 33.3% chance of something being of a certain color. So that, again, there's absolutely no weighing in there. So we talked about, okay, if we do add weighing and still want randomness in here and variation, then what should we do to make that happen? So what we're going to do is actually add weighing to the first random attribute, making sure that we can decide on a percentage of chance that that one is going to be of the same color as the core attribute. So what that means, if you go to the next, yeah. So we thought long about what that percentage should actually be. First, we were kind of settled on like, yeah, maybe 50-50 chance, that happens. But 50% up from 33.3% is not that much experience-wise. So what we're actually going to try on PTS is making sure that the first random attribute is 100% chance the same color as the core attribute, which means that there's a 25% chance that you get the particular red attribute that you're looking for. So that's something that we're going to try on PTS, and what we would really like to have feedback on. And of course, we're also playing with it more to see how we need to adjust that. So that's a work in progress, but that's kind of how we've updated the system so that we can weigh these things more. And then, of course, for the second random attribute, if you go to the final slide, that is still, of course, the remaining 11 attributes. So it takes away the one that it was selected for the first random attribute, and then there's 11 left. So that means that there's a 9.1% chance for any of the others to appear here. And that can be a red one, that can be any of the other colors, basically. So that's how we change the system and how we hope this addresses the rainbow rolls. That percentage is up for testing. So we'll see where that lands, and we appreciate the feedback that's coming from PTS.
So I probably will talk about this more on maybe a video on Friday, but the system they're using is the exact system that I've said I thought they were going to use a different system. I thought they were going to use like a weighting system where you'd have, say, 70% red, and then, you know, if it rolled weapon damage, you'd have 70% red and then 15% for the other two, yellow and blue. But what they've actually done is they've weighted 100%. So they've guaranteed that the one minor attribute will always match whatever the kind of major attribute is. I'm going back to Division 1 with those terms, but I just can't help it. And that's the exact system that I said they should use. So a little bit surprised they're using that system, if I'm honest, but that's the system they're using, and I'm pretty happy about it. Obviously, we'll see how it works out within the PTS. Now, when is the PTS? Well, they said that it's soon, but they can't give us a date yet. A question was asked about named items and how they work with this rainbow loot, and they said it will always roll its perfect stat. So named items should remain the same. How about gear sets was another question that was asked. Well, if they stick with this system, the minimum or the minor attribute will match the major stat. Obviously, if you don't want that to match, then you'll have to recal. So that's that. They then went on to talk about agnostic mods, and I've covered this before, but we'll go over it here so you guys know exactly what this is all about. So the first question was, what's the reasoning behind this? So the answer was, well, twofold. One is more flexibility in the builds, and the other is that you needed some hidden knowledge about how geared rolled. For example, the Hana U mask, which was skill based item, was set up to kind of be hybrid as well by giving it a red mod slot. And there are items with fixed mod slots, and there are others that didn't and rolled whatever they wanted. So if you're looking for this completely yellow Hana U mask because you didn't have that hidden knowledge, then you're going to be looking forever, and you will need to recal that mod slot. And that's why they are going with generic mod slots. And I'm going to insert some images here from State of the Game. They are presented as grey now, and this will be retroactive. If you have recaled, that particular mod slot, this is going to be removed with TU11, and you're going to be refunded the materials. Another image here you can see is all the mods in one list there. They've still got their colours, but you can put any of them in those mod slots when TU11 drops. We then had some more news from Bruce, who's working on TU11, come into the stream, and what they confirmed is they're going to be doubling the resistance percentage for mods, so they're going to be way more powerful than they are now, and that again is retroactive. Also, there's going to be 2 new resistance mods, Ensnare and Confusion. They then want to talk about Season 2. The next cycle started yesterday. You can now take down all 4 targets to get the repair trap skill, or 4 targets and then the manhunt target as well. Just like Season 1, if you don't manage to get the repair trap skill before Season 2 ends, there will be a way to get it in Season 3. A question came up about a mod library. They said there's no plans for that yet. The devs do know that mod management is not where they want it to be. There is a feature in there that may have snuck under the radar where you're able to kind of filter attributes in the mod inventory. So if you didn't know about that, you can do that. But they did say there is a lot to do with kind of naming of items, sorting of items, etc., which they want to look into. This is all on their radar, and this is part of their wish list, but don't anticipate this coming with TU11. And then they just wanted to give some more clarity on Rainbow Loot. They said this is only going to be effective on new items that are dropped. So this is not going to be retroactive. Mod slots are going to be retroactive because they can only change your build in a beneficial way. Obviously, if they did the Rainbow Loot thing retroactively, then that really wouldn't be fair for the people who did create those kind of hybrid builds. So yeah, that's not retroactive. And then lastly, they said that next week we will get the confirmed PTS release date along with the date for the Skyscraper game mode. So that's it for today's video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy this one. If you did and you stuck around until the end, really do appreciate it. And until the next one, Epic out.